All right, new synthesizer from Arturia, the SQ80V, just coming out today. And all I wanted to do is show you a little video with some of the patches in it and a little idea came up with today. And I'm telling you, this one sounds legit, like legit 80s synthesizer. The Ensoniq SQ80 was a synthesizer that came out in the late 80s and used a different type of synthesis. They call it the crosswave synthesizer. And if any of you have seen my Casio CZ video, where I took an actual CZ3000 synthesizer, which the Arturia software was based on, and did a kind of head-to-head. I'll put a link to that in the description. Make sure you go check out that video. And if you want me to do the same thing with this one, maybe I'll spend the next couple weeks looking for an actual Ensoniq SQ80, because I'd love to have one, you know? I mean, can always have more synths, but you don't need to go buy one because they've made this beautiful synthesizer. The original synthesizer had 75 waveforms, and then it had a bunch of other waveforms that you could get if you hacked your synthesizer. So I don't know when they figured it out, but somewhere probably in the late 80s or 90s, they figured out if you could get into this thing and do something to it, you could get more waveforms. So they've got those hidden waveforms built into it. And then they've also included hundreds of other waveforms of their own. So a ridiculous amount of waveforms. You've got 3 oscillators that you can use any one of those different waveforms and create basically an infinite amount of sounds. The stuff they're doing with these synthesizers is incredible. And I can't say for a second here how close this compares to the original because I don't have the original here, but it does sound great. It does sound classic 80s, and it's got really unique ways of generating sounds. So let's dig into the patches that I'm using in this little idea, because everything that you just heard right there is all coming from the SQ80, even the drums. So we'll have a look at what I did here in Machine. I didn't sample anything, just played it in and played with some of the default patches that come with the software. And then if you want to let me know in the comments section, if you want me to dig into the synthesizer, I will do a detailed video, a detailed tutorial on the synthesizer. And this is just one of many recreations by Arturia, and I'm telling you, this one has all the feels of the late 80s. So with every synthesizer from Arturia, you see that there is this front panel, and then if you want to get really into the synthesis of it, you click on the synthesis tab and you can see this really nice looking flat interface. And I love the look of the synthesizer. I can't believe how many user interfaces they've created for all of their synthesizers. And this one is specific just to this synthesizer, and it looks fantastic. You go in here and you can choose one of your 3 different oscillators. You've got your filter, you've got envelopes, a whole bunch of different envelopes and envelope generators, and they've got different types of envelopes. Like the original SQ80, we've got a multi-stage envelope generator, and then they've got this DADSR, which has a delay at the beginning as well as the regular ADSR stuff that we're used to. We've got things like LFOs, which you had in the original as well, and we can modulate pretty much any parameter. And then over on the right-hand side here, we've got effects that we can choose as well, so a whole bunch of different types of effects. And so afterwards, we'll just have a quick look at one patch and try playing around with some of these different features and different oscillators and stuff. But let's look at the patches that I've got in this song. The first patch I played was this bells patch, and this one is called Bouncy Bells. The first thing I noticed was the envelope was not syncing to the beat of the music. And so let me load it up on a different patch here. And if I look at this little envelope right here, envelope 1, you can see that the rate is syncing to hertz, so it's not syncing to tempo. So all I have to do is go sync, and then I could change things. So here I could go sync dotted if I wanted a dotted rhythm or a triplet rhythm, or if I just wanted to sync it to whole notes, quarter notes, and stuff like that. So I wanted to have be a little bit more aggressive. So I moved some of these points over so that they were all exactly on a subdivision of a beat. So something like this. And we'll move this one over as well. And you can see how they're kind of snapping to the beat. And then we can see that it's being tied to this filter right here. So what happens if we play around with this filter a bit? And then here's an interesting control that I just figured out literally right now. Is watch what happens when I play this. We hear wob, 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 wob. And then if I go down an octave, wob, 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 wob. And if I go another octave, wob, 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 wob. So what this is telling me is this little key time control is changing as you go up down the keyboard. It's syncing these little changes to a different ratio. So if I go in the middle, okay, so we can see that every octave it's changing and syncing to a different subdivision of the beat. Interesting control. So this is obviously quantizing or moving it to the beat. But if I set that to 0 now, everything is at the same speed. So that's a new control that I haven't seen before, but it makes perfect sense. I love synthesizers like this, that you can go, okay, why is it doing that? And how can I change that and make it work in the way that I'm thinking or the way that I want? Anyways, just to really show you quickly how you could go in and tweak some of these parameters to make them fit to your song, also to give you an idea of what these envelopes are capable of. So let's look at another patch. I think I used chord mode and used chord set minor 4 on the machine. And what I did is I started with a first chord, which was probably just a triad. So you can see it's just 1, 2, 3, 4 notes, so a triad plus an octave. And then for the next chord, what I did is I kept that first one down so that the next chord would add to the arpeggiator and would offset the rhythm of the arpeggiator. So you've got the first one going. Now if I hold it down, here we get a totally different rhythm because the arpeggiator has more notes to cycle through now. So it ended up giving the arpeggiator patch this kind of really interesting sound. So you get the idea. It's just a really interesting way to use arpeggiators. And so just by changing the amount of notes that you have on the chord, you're going to get this totally different pulsing rhythm. Sometimes it's not going to be what you want, but in this case it worked out really nicely. So that was the Pavlov's Dream patch, and the arpeggiator was added to this SQ80. It wasn't in the original, but it's brilliant. It's just on the front panel. Next I had a drum kit at first because I didn't realize that the SQ80 and the original had drum sounds. So they've got some sampled drum sounds, and I'm not sure if they are just samples that are being triggered, but we'll get to those. Actually, we'll look at them right now. Why not? We've got the kick drum down here. We've got hi-hats in the middle. And then toms. What I did with those is I went and found the kick drum that kind of felt like it was in the same key as the song. Because we've got so many different kicks. That one sort of feels like the B flat, which is funny because I'm playing an F sharp, but that's beside the point. Anyways, and then same thing with the snare, and got this kind of pitched drum sound. And then of course we have the toms just doing their sort of fake Phil Collins thing. And they sounded great. So let's look at the next patch that I've got in here. And that is our bass. See, that's got a filter that's changing every time you hit the note. So you could go over to the synthesis section. And here we can see this envelope number 1 must be assigned to what the filter is doing. So we can see it right here. What happens if we drag this out? See, it's slowly going down. Let's go a little faster. Let's try it like this. So you can see how we can go and change this filter modulation just right down here in envelope number 1. And then this is one of my favorite features of all of their virtual instruments. Watch this. Undo. How many times have you gone and done something to a synthesizer patch and you have no undo with the things that you've just done to it? So you almost have to like save multiple versions of your software and then go back to it. But that's a brilliant thing of Arturia's. They've always got the undo feature. I love that. I use that all the time because I end up messing up patches and wishing I didn't do something, right? So we've got cool voices. Now this one, just classic. Perfect 80s sounding voice. And then we got the warp lead that I was kind of soloing around on. Don't forget to use pitch bend on machine as well. It's really fun. Now I will show you another thing that I love about Arturia synthesizers, and so many other manufacturers really need to jump on board with this, and that is their browser. If you just click up top here, you're going to see the different categories of sounds, which is fine. But if you click this button right here, you're going to go to their preset explorer, which is their kind of custom browser. And so I'm going to go over to types and I'm going to go to pad, but then I can go and do a little bit more thinning out by clicking on this styles button. So I want to go to, let's go atmospheric, and it shows 20 results. So I click show results and I get just those patches for this synthesizer that have that metadata. Omnisphere has this. Native Instruments to a degree has this with their built-in browser on the machine hardware and on complete control. And I think every synthesizer should have this functionality. It makes it so much easier to find patches. This is built into the software. Beautiful thing. So now we can go through, try some of these patches. And then if I click this next arrow, it's going to go to my next patch in that special list. Let's go to this browser for a little bit. Let's try Calliope, classic 80s sound. It's brass. Let's try some of the keys. Try some of the sequences out. These are arpeggiated patches. Lead sounds. So just a super surface level look at the software, but I'm really excited about it already. And man, I just can't believe how many great recreations these guys keep putting out, but they keep adding different spins on it. I think that's what makes it so exciting. So it's like, do you want an SQ80? Well, here you go, here's a virtual one. But then they've gone and taken its method of creating sound and added hundreds of new waveforms and different ways of creating sounds with that as the starting point. So instead of taking samples from an SQ80 and using those as the starting point and changing them, it's almost like they're using that synthesizer to inspire a piece of software, which is so cool. So I'm not getting paid to make the video, but they did send me the software for free. And if you want to help me out, I do have a little tip jar. Put a link to that in the description. Make sure you go check out that Casio video as well. And then you can really get an idea of how much care these guys go into to recreate classic synthesizers. So thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button and the bell, and we'll see you in the next video.